The night fell deeper than anyone in Amaji had ever seen. The air felt heavy, thick with silence. Not a single insect sang. Not even the wind dared to move through the trees. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something dreadful to arrive. Unyime stood at the edge of the forest, his lantern trembling in his hand. The faint glow threw shadows across his face, making his eyes look older, filled with worry. Somewhere beyond those trees lay the chief's compound, and Rachel. He tightened his grip on the lantern and whispered to himself, "I must see her, no matter what happens tonight." As he began to walk, a strange sound echoed from the darkness, soft at first, then rising, like distant drums beating from beneath the earth. The ground under his feet shivered slightly. Unyime froze, his heart pounding. Then, from the trees, a cold wind rushed past him, blowing out his lantern. Darkness swallowed him whole. He could see nothing, not the trees, not his own hands. Yet, deep within that darkness, something seemed to whisper his name. Unyime. Unyime. Go back. Go back. He shook his head and shouted, "Who's there?" But only his echo replied. Meanwhile, in the chief's compound, Rachel sat on her bed, clutching her mother's old wrapper tightly around her shoulders. Every lamp in the compound had gone out. The guards had gathered outside, lighting small fires to keep their courage alive. Her father, Chief Clifford, paced restlessly in the sitting room, sweat running down his temples. Suddenly, one of the guards rushed in, panting, "Chief, the river has turned black! The fishes are floating! Dead!" The old chief froze. The prophecy, the words of the elders now thundered in his mind. 3 nights of darkness will come. Rachel stood at her doorway, trembling. "Father, what if this is not a curse, but a warning? A test?" Chief Clifford turned sharply. "Enough of that talk. You have brought this evil upon us." "Father," she cried, "I didn't bring evil. I only loved someone you said I shouldn't." Her words echoed through the compound like a cry of truth piercing the night. Just then, thunder rolled across the sky. No rain, only the deep growl of heaven. A red glow began to rise from the horizon, faint at first, then growing stronger. The people of Amaji stepped out of their homes, gasping in terror. "The sky is burning," someone shouted. But it wasn't fire. It was a strange, eerie light that turned the world crimson. The first night of darkness had truly begun. Down by the river, Mama Eze knelt on the muddy bank, her hair loose and her eyes wild. She dipped her hand into the black water and pulled it out, trembling. "It has begun. The spirits have awakened." Suddenly, she saw movement, a shadow rising from the water, tall and shapeless, like smoke twisting into a man's form. It spoke in a deep, echoing voice. "The hearts of the forbidden have joined. The land must pay its price." Mama Eze fell to the ground crying, "Mercy, O ancestors, mercy!" But the shadow only laughed, a sound that carried through the wind all the way to the town. At that very moment, Unyime stumbled out of the forest and reached the compound gate. The guards pointed their torches at him in alarm. "Who goes there?" one barked. "It's me, Unyime. I must see Rachel." Before they could stop him, Rachel appeared behind them, her eyes wide with relief and fear. "Unyime, you came." The guard stepped back as the chief stormed out, fury burning in his eyes. "What are you doing here, boy? Have you not brought enough trouble?" Unyime stood tall. "Chief, I didn't bring this darkness. I only love your daughter. I would rather die than see her suffer." The old man's face softened for a brief second, but then lightning struck near the compound, shaking the ground. Everyone screamed and fell to their knees. The priestess's voice echoed faintly through the air. "The second night comes when love defies fear." The sky darkened even more. The next day came, but it brought no light. The sun refused to rise. The air was cold, the birds silent. People gathered at the marketplace, praying loudly, crying, begging for forgiveness. By the second night, the fear had grown into madness. Some families fled to the hills. Others locked their doors and lit candles, whispering old prayers their grandparents had taught them. Inside the chief's compound, Rachel and Unime sat together under the mango tree. The fires burned low, and the smell of smoke hung in the air. "Unime," Rachel said softly, "if this curse destroys us, promise me one thing." He looked at her, his voice trembling. "Anything. Promise me you'll never regret loving me." He reached out, touching her cheek gently. "How can I regret the only thing that ever made sense in my life?" She smiled sadly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then whatever happens, we face it together." At that very moment, the sky rumbled again, louder this time. The ground shook, the fires blew out, and then complete silence. A deep, unnatural silence that pressed against their ears until they could hear only their own breathing. Then came the whisper, low, haunting, all around them. On the third night, the choice must be made. The wind howled suddenly, spinning dust and leaves around them. Rachel screamed as she saw something move behind the tree, a dark human shape with eyes like burning coal. Unime pulled her close. "Don't look at it." But it was too late. The figure stepped forward, its voice deep and cold. "The blood of love, or the blood of the land, one must be given to end the curse." The earth cracked beneath their feet, and the fires reignited by themselves. Chief Clifford came running out, shouting, "Stay away from her!" But the spirit turned its gaze on him. "You defied the prophecy. Now the land will choose." Lightning struck again, this time hitting the shrine at the center of the village. The priestess cried out in the distance, and then, as quickly as it began, the darkness swallowed everything once more. Amaji trembled. The third night had arrived. The night had turned cold and cruel. The wind screamed through Amaji like angry spirits searching for peace. Every tree bent under the force, and the roofs of old houses groaned as if the earth itself was weeping. In the chief's compound, chaos ruled. The fires that had lit the courtyard were gone. The guards huddled together, whispering prayers in trembling voices. Chief Clifford stood in the middle of it all, his royal beads hanging loose around his neck, his face pale with fear. He could hear the priestess's distant cries echoing from the hills. The third night has come. The choice must be made. But what choice? What sacrifice could stop the curse that had already swallowed the light of the world? Rachel clung to Unime's arm, her whole body shaking. Unime, what did that spirit mean? The blood of love or the blood of the land? He looked down at her, his eyes filled with pain. I don't know, but I'll not let it touch you. I swear it.
I swear it.
Chief Clifford turned sharply towards them. "Enough," he barked. "You have brought ruin to this land, boy. Leave now before you doom us all." Unime stood his ground. "Chief, if my love for your daughter can destroy the land, then perhaps it's not love that's cursed. Perhaps it's the hatred that forbids it." The words cut through the night like a blade. For a moment, even the wind paused. The old chief stared at Unime, his jaw trembling, as memories of his own youth flashed in his mind. A love he had once been forced to abandon for the sake of the throne. Rachel looked at her father and whispered, "Father, please, let us face this together. We can't fight what we don't understand." Before Chief Clifford could answer, the ground shuddered violently. From somewhere deep within the forest came a loud cracking sound, as if the heart of the earth had broken open. Then came a roar, long and deep, followed by a strange glow rising over the trees. The people of Amaji screamed and fled from their homes. Children cried, elders fell to their knees, and through it all, Mama Eze, the old priestess, walked barefoot down the hill, holding a flaming staff that refused to die. Her hair flew wild in the wind, and her voice carried over the chaos. "The spirits demand balance," she cried. "The union of crown and soil must be sealed with sacrifice. If love has joined them, only love's blood can restore the land." Her eyes locked on Rachel. "Daughter of the crown, the land calls your name." Rachel froze. "Me?" Mama Eze nodded sadly. "You were born under the sign of dawn, the child of the red moon. You were chosen before your birth. The curse can only end when the royal heart proves its purity." Onyime stepped forward immediately. "No, if a sacrifice must be made, take me instead. I am the son of the soil. Let my blood be the price." The old priestess's eyes softened. "Your heart is brave, son of the soil, but the spirits have spoken. The blood that must fall is that of royal lineage. The land must drink from its own crown to be healed." Rachel shook her head fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "No, I won't die for an old curse that none of us started. There has to be another way." But Mama Eze only bowed her head. Love always asks for a price. Thunder cracked overhead again. A great gust of wind swept through the compound, scattering sand and ashes. Chief Clifford dropped to his knees, his voice breaking. "Spirits of our fathers, take me instead. Leave my daughter. Take me." The flames of the priestess's staff flickered, and for a moment the storm paused. Her voice softened. "The spirits hear your plea, Chief Clifford, but only one heart can break the chain. The heart that chose love over fear." All eyes turned to Rachel. Her breath came in small gasps. The air was heavy, pressing against her chest. Then through the roaring wind, she heard something, faint at first, then clear. It was the sound of her mother's voice, gentle and distant, whispering from the beyond. "My child, love is not meant to destroy. It is meant to heal. But healing often comes through sacrifice." Rachel's tears fell freely now. She looked at Onyime, his eyes red and desperate. "Onyime," she said softly, "if my death will end this, then maybe it's the only way to give life back to Amaji." "No," Onyime shouted, shaking his head violently. "You can't do this. I won't let you." She reached for his hands and smiled through her tears. "You fixed broken engines, Onyime. Maybe this time you can fix a broken land. But you must let me go." He fell to his knees, holding her hand tight. "Please, Rachel, there has to be another way." Mama Eze raised her staff, and a beam of red light shot up into the sky, illuminating the darkness. The clouds swirled above them, and the shadow that had haunted the land appeared once more, taller, darker, its voice like thunder. "The time has come. The blood of the pure must fall before the dawn." Rachel closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. "If love is the curse, let love be the cure." She stepped forward into the red glow, but before the spirit could touch her, Onyime suddenly leapt up and pushed her aside, shouting, "Then take me instead." The light struck him squarely in the chest. For a split second, everything froze. The wind, the thunder, even the air itself. Then a burst of blinding white light exploded across Amaji. When the light faded, Onyime lay motionless on the ground. The sky began to clear slowly, the crimson glow melting into gray. The first faint hint of dawn appeared on the horizon. Rachel fell beside him, screaming his name. "Onyime, wake up! Please, wake up!" Chief Clifford knelt beside her, his eyes wet with tears. "He saved us all," he whispered. "The son of the soil has paid the price." Mama Eze raised her hands to the heavens. The curse is broken. The third night is over. The dawn has come. The people of Amaji began to emerge from their homes, staring at the returning light. Birds started to sing again, the river's color turned clear, and the smell of fresh rain filled the air. But Rachel did not see any of it. She only saw Onyime lying still in her arms, his face peaceful, his lips curved into a faint smile, as if he had finally found rest. She pressed her forehead against him and whispered, "If love is the price, then I will carry it for the rest of my life." Above them, the first ray of sunlight touched the land of Amaji, washing away the night. But deep in the forest, the shadow that had cursed the town lingered softly, whispering, not in anger, but in sorrow, "The blood of love has fallen, but the story is not yet done." The dawn that followed was unlike any Amaji had ever seen. The sky stretched wide and pale, painted in gentle gold. Dew shimmered on the grass like tiny tears of the earth. The river flowed again, clear as glass, and the palm trees swayed softly in the returning breeze. Yet beneath the beauty of that morning, silence lay heavy, the silence of hearts that had lost something precious. Rachel sat beside Unime's still body under the mango tree. She had not moved since the night before. Her wrapper was covered in dust, her eyes red from crying. Around her, villagers gathered quietly, afraid to speak. Mama Eze, the old priestess, stood nearby, leaning on her staff. Her once piercing voice was now only a whisper. He gave his life for love, and by that the land was healed. Chief Clifford looked at the young man who had saved them, the same mechanic he once despised, and a deep shame settled over his heart. He knelt beside his daughter, his voice trembling. "My child," he said softly, "your love was true, and I was blind. I fought against what I did not understand." Rachel turned to him slowly. Her voice was hoarse, but steady. "He didn't just fix cars, Father. He fixed a curse you carried in fear." The old chief bowed his head, tears running down his cheeks. For the first time, he felt smaller than the title he bore. As the people of Amaji gathered, Mama Eze raised her hands and spoke to them. "This day will be remembered for all generations. The son of the soil has paid the price that even kings could not bear. From this dawn onward, love shall no longer be forbidden between the crown and the commoner. For through love, the land has found peace." The crowd murmured in agreement. Men removed their caps. Women wept quietly. They buried Unime near the river, the same river that had once turned black during the curse. Now it shone brightly, reflecting the sunlight like a mirror of heaven. As they lowered him into the earth, Rachel whispered a quiet vow. "Unime, your love will not die here. I will keep your dream alive. I will make Amaji a land where hearts are not judged by birth or wealth." The priestess sprinkled white chalk on the grave and chanted softly in the ancient tongue. When she finished, she turned to Rachel and said, "Child of the crown, your heart carries his spirit. His blood has touched yours. The curse is gone, but a bond remains, one that reaches beyond death." Rachel didn't fully understand what the priestess meant then, but her heart felt it, a quiet warmth inside her chest, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Days turned into weeks. The town healed, but Rachel did not. Every morning she visited Unime's grave, bringing hibiscus flowers, the kind he once said reminded him of hope. She would sit by the river, talking to him as if he were beside her. "I can still hear you," she would whisper. "When the wind blows, it feels like you're near." Sometimes, as she spoke, the river would ripple, though no stone had fallen into it. The trees would rustle, and the scent of engine oil, faint but familiar, would drift through the air. One evening, Chief Clifford joined her by the riverbank. He had grown quieter since that night. His pride softened into humility. "My daughter," he said gently, "the council has agreed to build a new workshop near the palace, in Unime's name. It will train young men and women, both rich and poor, together." Rachel smiled weakly. He would have loved that. The chief sighed deeply. "He taught me more in death than I ever learned in power." He paused, watching the fading light. "Rachel, Will you ever forgive me?" Rachel placed her hand on his. "I already did, Father. The night he died, I forgave everyone, even myself." For the first time in years, Chief Clifford smiled, though his eyes were wet. "Then Amaji is truly healed." That night, as Rachel slept, she dreamed of Unyime. He stood in a field of light, wearing a clean white shirt, no oil stains on his hands. His smile was calm, peaceful. "Rachel," he said softly. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "You're alive!" He shook his head gently. "Not in your world, but love doesn't end, Rachel. It only changes form. You must live, not mourn. You must make the land what we dreamed it could be." She reached for him, but her hands passed through the light. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "I'm not leaving," he said, smiling. "Every time you help someone, every time you forgive, every time you choose love over pride, I'll be there." The wind blew through the field, and his voice faded with it. "The prophecy isn't about death, Rachel. It's about rebirth." When she woke, the morning sun poured through her window, and for the first time in many days, she felt peace. Months later, Amaji was transformed. The once quiet town became a place of unity. The royal palace gates were open to all. Farmers, traders, and mechanics worked side by side. The new workshop, Unyime's Hands of Hope, became the heart of the town. Children ran through the streets laughing again, and music returned to the market. The curse was no longer spoken of in fear, but as a story of courage and love. Rachel often stood by the river in the evenings, watching the sunset. One day, as she stood there, Mama Eze approached, her walking stick tapping gently against the stones. "You have done well, daughter of the crown. The land breathes again. But remember, prophecies never truly end. They only sleep." Rachel looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" The old woman smiled faintly. "Love is a seed. It can heal, but it can also awaken what sleeps beneath. Guard your heart well, for one day the land may test it again." Rachel nodded slowly, gazing at the horizon where the river met the sun. "If it does," she said softly, "I'll face it the way he taught me, with love." As the priestess walked away, a soft breeze blew across the water. The hibiscus flowers by the grave swayed gently, and in that moment, Rachel heard it again, faint, warm, familiar. The whisper of Unyime's voice carried on the wind. "Rachel, I'm still here." She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "I know," she whispered back. "You always will be." And as the sun dipped behind the hills, the land of Amaji glowed with peace, a peace born from love, sealed by sacrifice, and carried by memory. The prophecy had ended its curse, but it had begun its legend. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving behind a silver mist that wrapped the village like a dream. The air smelt of wet earth and sorrow, a reminder that something great had fallen and something greater was about to rise. In the center of the royal courtyard, where the sacred tree once stood, Rachel knelt in silence. Her white wrapper was soaked, her hair untied and dripping. The villagers stood at a distance, watching her as though she had become both mystery and miracle. Her father, Chief Clifford, approached slowly. His staff of office trembled in his grip. His once proud eyes, which had known command for decades, were now heavy with regret. "My daughter," he began, his voice breaking, "the gods have spoken through pain, but they have also given us a second chance. The curse is gone." Rachel turned to him, her face pale but calm. "At what cost, father?" she asked softly. "Unyame gave his life so peace could breathe again." The chief bowed his head. He had never cried before anyone, but that morning he wept openly. A man of humble birth did what many of us never could. He saw beyond tribe and pride. He saw the heart. From behind, Mama Ijeoma came forward, the old seer whose voice had carried the first warning of the prophecy. Her face was lined with wisdom, her hands trembling as she carried a small clay bowl filled with ashes from the destroyed shrine. "The gods are no longer angry," she declared, "but they leave a message. Love that is true must never be hidden. When men build walls, heaven breaks them down." A soft murmur passed through the crowd. Rachel stood, wiping her tears. "Then let there be no more walls," she said firmly. "Let this land remember Unyame not as an outcast, but as a son of our people." Her words carried far, to the hills, to the farms, to the hearts of those who once mocked the mechanic. Some began to cry, others bowed their heads. For the first time, the villagers felt shame not as punishment, but as rebirth. That night, the moon returned, full and golden, bathing the village in gentle light. Rachel could not sleep. She sat outside her hut, staring at the stars. Each one seemed to whisper Unyame's name. In her hands, she held the silver pendant he had once fixed for her. It glimmered faintly, still warm, as though his spirit lingered in the metal. "Why did you leave me?" she whispered. "Why couldn't you wait for dawn?" Then she heard it, a low hum, soft as the wind, rising from the forest. She recognized that sound, Unyame's old song, the one he hummed while working on engines, the one he once said helped him fix the heart before fixing the machine. Without thinking, Rachel rose and followed the sound. The path was dim, covered in fog, but she walked with no fear. When she reached the clearing, she saw the pool where he had vanished. The water shimmered faintly like liquid glass. Then, as the wind brushed across it, his reflection appeared, faint but clear, smiling that quiet smile she loved. "Unyame?" she gasped. The reflection moved, lips forming silent words. She knelt, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't hear you," she cried. The breeze shifted again, and for a brief moment the whisper came, warm, tender, like the sound of a heartbeat. "Love doesn't die, Rachel. It only changes form." The reflection faded, but the water glowed brighter, pulsing with a soft golden light. Rachel placed her hands into it, feeling a warmth rush through her veins, not sorrow, but peace. She returned to the village before sunrise. The chief and elders were already gathered at the square, discussing the rebuilding of the shrine, but when they saw her, they fell silent. There was something in her eyes, a strange calm glow, like dawn resting on water. "I have spoken with the spirit of Unyame," Rachel said gently. "He does not wish for mourning. He wishes for rebuilding, not of stones, but of hearts." Mama Ijeoma stepped forward and touched Rachel's forehead. "You carry his light," she murmured. "The love that broke the curse now lives in you." Weeks passed. The old divided people began to work together, repairing roofs, replanting farms, and singing new songs. Children played freely again, and laughter returned to the marketplace. Chief Clifford renamed the central road Unyame's Way, saying, "Let every traveler who walks this path remember that peace was once bought with courage." Rachel herself became the voice of change. She gathered the young men and women each evening, teaching them that love was not weakness, and that true honor came from understanding, not fear. Sometimes, when she spoke, her voice carried a tone that made the people feel Unyame was speaking through her. But though she smiled, a quiet part of her still longed, not with pain, but with remembrance. She often stood by the pool at night watching the ripples dance. Some nights she swore she could feel a hand brush hers, warm, calloused, familiar. One evening, as the sky burned orange, Rachel gathered the people under the baobab tree. She said, "The prophecy has ended, but we must write our own story now. Let our children grow without the fear of curses. Let them love boldly, for love is the only truth the gods respect." The villagers cheered, but as the voices rose, Rachel looked once more toward the forest, and there, beyond the mist, she saw it, a faint figure, smiling, fading with the wind. Unyame. She smiled too, her tears mixing with the light. "Rest well," she whispered. "We did it." And as the evening wind passed through the village, the sound of a mechanic's hum drifted across the air, low, rhythmic, eternal. The curse was gone, but his song remained. Love had outlived death, and peace had found a home. Moral of the story: true love is not chained by status or prophecy. It is the language that even the gods must obey. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts below. What do you think? Can love truly change destiny? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again for another story that speaks straight to the soul.